interested in how machines see things and how it's different than the way we see things. Artists often do other things besides sell work.
You're not really in the fear of being a starving artist?
No. I'm Jeff Nickerson. I've been at Mana for maybe about a year. I do mainly photography, but I do photography in a fairly computational way.
If you can explain a bit more about like this apparatus.
Sure. So this is a plotter, and I'm interested in layering things on top of photographs, and the plotter allows me to do that. Not only that, but the plotter can be controlled directly from a Python program, and that's the way I'm controlling it. So what I'm about to do right now is I have printed a photograph, and I've got the plotter set up, and I've got a simple program that's going to draw a grid on top of it. This is actually the power station in Providence we were talking about before. And so I'm going to draw a grid on top of it to kind of add to the complexity of the image. As soon as I run this program, here we go.
Oh, wow. Can you talk about like your focus on like the city and this mechanical subject matter?
Right. So I'm interested in the way that that a lot of our technology can be very useful for directly producing art, like current AI can directly produce art. But I'm much more interested in technology in the way it sees things, right? And so right now there are delivery robots right around this building that have to navigate space and are doing things in our space. And most of the models that we use now, large language models, now have a vision component, so they actually are looking at things. And so I'm interested in how machines see things and how it's different than the way we see things.
Interesting. Can you talk about like as you mentioned the process of like analyzing the different angles of the robots and stuff?
Right. So what I've been doing recently is I've in order to kind of control and understand the way a machine sees something, you kind of want to do something like a CAT scan or something. And so what I do is I take basically a model, a computer model, a local one sitting on my machine, and I have it look at an image, and as it looks at an image, I look at how basically these things work as a bunch of matrices. They have a bunch of weights. I look at what weights are being fired off as it looks at images, and as it moves up the kind of conceptual stack, it will start looking at pixels, and then it will look like sets of pixels, and it will look at regions of an image, and then it will start to articulate language around the image. And so I look at all of those different things, I probe it, and I watch the way those things unfold as a way of understanding the way a machine sees something.
Why do you want to know how a machine sees something?
Well, because we can't do this with the way humans see something. It's kind of hard to do. It's kind of hard to look at the layers of the brain as we see something. So that's one reason. But I think that the machines actually are seeing things differently, and I think it's important for us to understand that they see things differently.
Yeah. Interesting. Why do you make chaos in your work? Not in a disrespectful way, but there's like a lot of like you see on these like branches and stuff. There's a lot of like chaos, like it's almost look like a Jackson Pollock painting.
Yeah, they do look like Jackson Pollock paintings, and I'm not sure chaos is the word I would use. I'm kind of interested in structure, and I'm also interested in complexity. And so I kind of ask myself, like, what are the most complex images? And why are they complex, and why at least for me, am I attracted to these images that are super complex? And so I think some of it has to do with branching and organization. And so I've been taking pictures of really two kinds of branching. One is in the kind of artificial world, like power substations where we have these, you have lots of grids of circuits. Essentially, it's one big circuit when you go and see a substation with transformers and capacitors and all this kind of stuff. You're looking at like a really big circuit. So I've been photographing those. At the same time, I also photograph natural landscape, which also has like extremely complex branching structures. And again, I'm kind of interested in how these things are similar and different. In some ways, the natural ones are actually more complex. In fact, I would say that in general, they're more complex than the human way ones. Although, some of these big substations, like I've got some pictures here of a substation in Providence, Rhode Island. It's like really pretty complicated. It's quite big, and it's both a power station and a substation in the same location. So it's a subject I keep on coming back to.
And you try to like combine this like nature thing with the machinery of a city.
Right. So I'm kind of like I'm interested in understanding structure, and I'm interested in can these things, are these like really separate things, or are they things that kind of come together? I can conceptually say that they come together, but I like to actually show the way they come together. And so I'm trying to find techniques to join the images together in a sense. Some of the work I do is collage-like, in the sense that I'm compositing one image on top of another. Some of it involves like drawing on top of an image, which is something we might be able to look at a little bit more. So these are ways of trying to bring these things together. How do we combine images? We're always combining images in our mind, but combining them on the outside is something that's been a topic of art for a long time, and it turns out to be a quite complicated thing to do.
As an outsider for photography, I see like a lot of commercial photography or like cinematography, like they kind of really focus on the colors, but I think you kind of left it more like a raw image instead of like moving around like the color filters too much. So why do you have that choice?
Yeah, so I mean, I think color is interesting, but I'm not trying to. Commercial photographers do it because certain colors sell better than other colors, and it creates kind of a flash impact. I'm much more interested in like I treat this kind of like research, and so I want the colors to be. In most cases, I'm taking the colors as they are. They're fairly low saturation. Again, I'm trying to see structure, and so to the extent the color helps see structure, I'll emphasize it. Otherwise, I'll subdue it so the structure comes out.
After I've been doing art for so many years, I still feel like I'm a very outsider to photography. I could never figure out like what makes a piece of photography artwork a good piece of work.
Yeah, so photography, like all parts of art, has this kind of very, very long history, and I would say that one of the interesting things about photography is that it's it started in imitation. It was a technology that started in that when it came out was seen as an imitation of painting. So the original, if you look at the old photographs, they kind of they diffuse the edges. They try to make it look like old photographs, and photographers were accused of putting portrait artists out of business. And so there were just there was extreme anger against photography that it wasn't an art form and it was destroying art a long time ago. And I think the same argument is right now being made about artificial intelligence, that it's going to drive out all illustrators and graphic designers and like that. So I kind of think of photography as one of these things where it is a technology. It was seen as not an art and kind of anti-art at first. And then what happened is photographers stopped trying to take photographs like paintings and started to treat photography more as a way of like documenting or understanding the world. That was kind of a very important stage in photography. And then later, that kind of documentation led to more conceptual forms of photography, where people would say that photographs don't look like the real world does, and maybe we can take advantage of that to create things that are conceptually interesting.
For photography pieces as an art form, do you think it requires a lot of like background knowledge and like craftsmanship for one person to become a photography artist?
I don't know. I think in all these things you kind of like have to decide what your medium is, right? And so a lot of artists will figure out what their medium is and then try to press the medium to the limit. Like we were talking about Pollock. His medium was painting, and he really pressed painting to the limit. He took away representational form, but he also did these really interesting technical things with using very large strokes and very, very small long strokes in the same image with the drips, so that you get these very high frequency optical effects, right? So in some ways he was doing, I think, research and really pressing the boundaries of what you could do with paint. Similarly, I think that many photographers do something similar. And so to do that, it really helps to understand the way the medium works, but it also helps to be experimental and to maybe combine it with other things. Like for me, I'm combining it with like computational tools. I build, for most of my things, I don't do them. I don't do them straight out of Photoshop. I build my own tools to do the compositing. So I actually write software to do the compositing. So I have control of it in a way I don't have with the kind of generic tools. So that's what I kind of mean by, if you treat something as a medium, you're always trying to press the limits of it. In some cases, you're combining it with other things that have been available to artists.
So if you create a prompt in the same way you want a image to appear and give it to AI, and it recreates the exact same thing, do you think that is also expressing the art?
It might be, but I don't do that, right? So my prompts have to do with, I want to do depth compositing, like build me a Python program that allows me to take different images, figure out their depths from the single image, and then compose multiple images by controlling the relative depth of them. And by the way, allow me to change translucency of each image based on depth. So in some ways, what I'm using AI for is just to build more and more refined tools for doing compositing. I could do the same thing in Photoshop, but it would take me like a couple of days, and it would look like it came out of Photoshop. But now I can build my own tools. They don't look like they come out of Photoshop, and I can control exactly what I want to be able to control.
When you take these photos, I assume you're taking a bunch of them, on one trip. So how do you know which one makes it to the last art form and others get deleted?
So kind of editing down is kind of a difficult process, right? Because you can take a lot, and so when I go out, I was up in Providence a couple weeks ago, power station, 700 photographs in one day of the power station with different lenses, different setups. But as I was doing it, I photographed it before, and I kind of knew what I didn't have, right? What I didn't have in the past, and what I was looking for. And I was also thinking about how am I going to composite some of these images. So I go in there kind of wanting to get a particular kind of image. I need to take a lot of them just as a process while I'm there. And then I need to later sometimes look at them and figure out what I have. Sometimes I'm surprised that the images that I thought were kind of like throwaway become the ones that I think are actually the best ones. Sometimes the ones where I take them very instinctively, where I haven't really been thinking too much, are the ones that to me kind of capture the thing I want to get at.
But you will still say most of them you kind of plan on what to take, right? So not every photo is just instinctive.
No, not at all. I mean, I am planning. I'm planning like what locations I'm going to go to, and I have in mind a particular, in some sense, photographs usually go together in groups, and so I have this idea. I have a series about infrastructure, and I'll take photographs of it. I'll give you one example though, where the coincidence was wonderful. Is that I was going to a high school reunion. And I was going to stay in a motel, and as I was booking it, I was looking at the location. I'm like, this is the kind of location, it was next to a very industrial area. Like, this is a location where there might be a data center. I don't have a data center yet. I looked up, and in fact, the hotel is right across from the data center. I'm like, okay, so while I'm there, I will get my data center photographs. And so that became kind of interesting. You know, through that, it was through the trip planning and looking at where I was going to be staying. I'm like, there is this thing that I've always wanted to photograph, and I haven't been close enough to one of these things to actually be able to get an image. And in this case, I had it, and that meant that I brought, you know, I brought extra lenses because I knew I might not be able to get too close to the data center, and I got my images.
And this must be so fun because like I do interviews, right? And I go around like the country or in China too. Like I go to different places and I book hotels and find new places, book new hotels, and I move around. And I think it's like, yeah, it's a similar but very interesting experience.
Yeah, and I've got another technique now too that I use with these kind of infrastructure images. Is I went to a talk with a set of journalists who do work using satellite photographs, and so now what I do is for particular images, if I know their location, I will also get the satellite images of those areas so I have context. And in some cases, I analyze the satellite images to figure out like what I really got in my shot, right? So as an example, there's some work over here that has to do with a upstate New York flower factory. So Archer Daniels Midland Flower Factory. And when I got the satellite photograph, I realized that the reason it's located there was because of the access to the rail lines. By the way, Mana Contemporary right here, we have a rail line right next to us like this, and so it's not really a coincidence. But then I was able to like research a little bit and understand that this is wheat coming from the Midwest, comes across rails, it goes into the factory, it goes and gets processed into bags of flour, which then again get put onto trucks and go back out again, right? So I do combine this with kind of other forms of research so that I try to understand the context of what I'm photographing.